What you have learned about money in your past becomes your reality in the future and will become your children's reality. That's a lot of pressure.
Welcome to the Double Shift podcast. I'm Dani Kagan, a serial entrepreneur and new mom. I'm obsessed with having unfiltered and inspiring conversations that redefine modern motherhood and celebrate high-performing, ambitious women. From launching a business with a newborn to navigating family life, we dive deep with thought leaders who defy expectations. No filters, some cursing, and pure inspiration to empower you to seize life, live more vulnerably, and reach for greatness together. Today's episode is going to be a good one because it's all about one of my favorite topics. Yes, one of my favorite topics. I know it sounds so funny. Money. I love talking about money. I think it's so important. And I'm so excited to have a very incredible media personality, best-selling author, award-winning writer, Melissa Leong here. She's the author of one of my favorite books, Happy Go Money, is a repeat guest on the Drew Barrymore Show on CBS, and serves as the resident money expert on Canada's leading daytime talk show, The Social. So you might know Melissa. She's a podcast host and formerly the personal finance reporter for the Financial Post. And I'm so excited to have you here, Melissa. Thank you for joining me.
Oh my goodness. I am just blown away by the fact that you love talking about money. You're a unicorn. It's special. I love it.
Well, I feel like it's such a taboo topic, and I know how much people worry about money, and we attach so much self-worth to money, but then we don't talk about it. And I feel like it's such a great topic, especially for high-performing moms, women. We need to be talking about it more, and you're like the perfect person to be here. You have 2 young kiddos. You're a financial expert. And one of the reasons I love your book so much is because you talk about a lot about mindset around money, which I think I would love to get really gritty and nitty about because it's so important. Okay.
I'm ready. Go. Let's dive. Let's dive in.
Let's do it. Okay. So I want to start with the mindset because you're all about behavioral finance, and you talk about the importance of self-awareness and creating a healthy relationship with money. So how the fuck do we do that? Because we don't have healthy relationships with money.
We don't do enough. We think a lot about what to buy. We don't think a lot about why we're buying it. And it's not this, we don't need to go lay on a couch and talk to a therapist necessarily about how we are broken and what traumas we've had in the past. But it can just be as simple as thinking about, well, how are your parents with money? What did you learn from your parents when it came to money? How did they talk about money? My parents were immigrants, so they talked about money in terms of scarcity. So we toil for it. You have, whatever we find, whatever we can get our hands on, you have to hoard it. So that has defined my mindset with money, and it has not served me and served me in many ways in my adulthood. And I find it coming up with my children. So I will have arguments with my husband now in the car where he'll say things like, well, mommy's being a little cheap. She doesn't want to buy this thing when we go on vacation. And now my son actually has weaponized it. And if I don't want to buy something that he wants, he'll say, Mom, it's because you're cheap. And I'm so triggered by that. But it is because we talk about money in front of him and he's learned certain things. So that is another jumping off point for a conversation. What you have learned about money in your past becomes your reality in the future and will become your children's reality. That's a lot of pressure.
So much
but it's
pressure.
wonderful. It's wonderful because, it's shining the light on something that you do have control over.
I love that. And it just really makes you think about how money was talked about around you when you grew up. Like I'm like, did my parents even talk about money that much in front of me? Like, I don't really think they spoke much about it. And now how am I going to speak about it in front of my kids? Like,
That is super common. Danny, a lot of people actually, because it's taboo, they don't talk about it in front of their children. But what has happened then is that you also have a generation of people who are uncomfortable, who don't have the language to talk about money because they never heard it growing up. Or they only heard it in a reference to, oh, that person is, they're an asshole. They have a lot of money. They're rich. They like to flaunt it. And so you do have some preconceived notions about money. The other thing to think about is, I've talked a little bit about thinking about how money was talked about and used while you were growing up and what that meant to you. The other thing is to talk about how you were hurt by it in the past. So that part you might need a therapist to talk to about that in terms of, did your parents not buy you things, or did they show you love by buying you things and only
Mm.
that? Or perhaps they just never put you in any programs, or they just didn't take an active, the opposite of helicopter parenting, basically in the 80s, where they just were not a part of your lives. And the only way that they got that was from, buying you a toy. And so you now equate love with that. And so that is also something to think about now. How do you try to heal your wounds? How do you deal with your insecurities? Is it with money? Because often, because money is just a tool, we use it in many different ways. One of those ways is to alleviate pain. And so if you are insecure, if you feel like you need a new suit to feel more confident in that job interview, or if you feel, comparing yourself to the Joneses is very, it's a human attribute. It's very common.
And I love that chapter, by the way. Can you just go on a quick tangent on that chapter about like that is
Comparing yourself.
like the comparison. It's just so
Yes.
like fuck the Joneses. That's what the chapter's called, right?
It's hard to do that, to be honest, because as human beings, we look at our peers as a way to gauge how we're doing. You look at your neighbor. It's natural. There's that weird study where it shows that people who live next to lottery winners, they're more likely to go into debt because they see their newly wealthy neighbors spending on visible assets like cars and renos and jewelry, and you just absorb into your brain that this is this new normal, that you also want to do this. And I find that with parents, everyone talks about the mom guilt, everyone talks about going on Instagram and seeing what your favorite influencer is buying in terms of children's apps, or sorry, children's like equipment. But there is a real insecurity with new motherhood, especially, where you become this person that is in charge of keeping this other human being alive. And before, your self-worth was tied to other things, tied to your stuff, tied to your job, tied to what you produced. And now you are a parent. You are now judging your value by how good of a parent you are. And sometimes we use money. If I buy this for my kid, if I buy the best stroller, if I put them in the best programs, then they will be good, I will be good. And so the keeping up with the Joneses thing is very, very natural. It's just that you have to check when that is happening. You have to check the voice inside your head. There are many parts of you as a parent, and there is sometimes a part of you that's a parent that's the should part. That voice inside you that's saying, you should do this because blank, blank, blank. Okay, why? Why should I do this?
It's a great reminder. We really need to take a step back and say, do I need this? Do I need to be comparing myself to someone? Like, get out of your head a little bit, because it's so easy to fall into that trap constantly as a parent. You're around.
It is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It is exhausting to think. You're like, I can understand how someone listening to this would say, really, Melissa Leong, you want me to question every time I take out my wallet, every time I'm going to click on something to instant buy an object on Amazon, so it's at my house tomorrow. Not all the time. There are many things we can do, actually, in terms of money management to set ourselves up for success. But one of the things we do need to get into the practice of, on top of the other systems, which we can talk about, budgeting, all that's wonderful, delicious stuff, is asking yourself, why do I feel like I need this? Not even why do I need this? Because the lawyer in your brain will justify it. But why do I feel like I need this? What is the reason I'm buying this? What are the last 3 unplanned purchases that I made? And why did I do that? How did I feel when I bought them? And how did I feel afterwards?
I'm trying to even think of the last 3 purchases I made, and they were probably all online shopping.
It's easy. I know exactly the last 3 unplanned purchases that I made, and they were all online.
Yeah.
And I told myself I needed them.
Yes. And you justify it. You're like, exactly, you said your lawyer in your brain is like, well, I need this because
it's on sale. That's one of the things. But that has to do with my my parents teaching me that if it's on sale, you have to have it. It's a good deal. You saved money. That's a virtue.
Yeah, your mom and my mom are very similar like that. I used to always go, she's like, come on, let's go to the sale rack. Let's go to the sale rack. So,
oh, yeah. But then my
love.
dad is the opposite. My dad's like, no, it's full price. It means it's good quality. You're like, wow, what's happening in my brain right now? Explosions.
Right. And then how do you like translate that? Okay, so wait, I want to go take a step back, going back to our kids for a second, because the financial literacy piece is totally missing. And I think, I don't know, you can tell me, your kids are a little older. I think it's getting better in the school system, and they're teaching more and more things. But I mean, I grew up with zero financial literacy in terms of schooling and education. So I'm so nervous for my kids because I feel like it's still not there yet, and it's not going to be where the level I would want it to be at. So, how are we teaching our kids about being financially literate?
Your children are our children. Our children are going to learn the most by watching us. And so that's it sounds like a lot of responsibility, but I'm probably never going to have a conversation with my son about derivatives, please no, or how to calculate bond yields. But I have been talking with him about money and about what he sees in our behavior since he could listen. So that is a conversation that is active constantly in my house. So when he was 3, he said, I want a snack pack from Starbucks. And I would say, that's $10. It's a lot of money. And we have all of those things at home. Do you want? I can buy you that snack pack if you really want it, Jet. Or we can save it because I'm trying to save some money to go and see Popo and Gong Gong. And a flight to Winnipeg is very expensive. And he thought about it, and he begrudgingly chose to go home without his snack pack.
Wow.
But he was pissed. He was like, I'll save the money for Popo and go. But he was so mad about it. But that's the other thing, is to let your children make choices. That's the only reason to give an allowance, is to let them practice making choices with money and mistakes with money, so that they don't suddenly start practicing when they're 18 and have a credit card.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's such a good thing to remember, that you can just show them the value of something and it will stick with them, and then they can make a decision about it. Like, mind blown. Like, it's just
at every point. Yes, for sure. At every point. The reason that conversation happened with my husband, where he called me cheap in front of our children, which he heard about later, because I talked to him about not having those kinds of, not saying that about me in that way, because then I had to go back and explain that to my son of what that meant and why there was a conflict between his father and I about our beliefs, that we have different beliefs about money. But we were talking about buying something, an experience on a family vacation that we were going on, that my husband Sean really wanted to do, that I thought was unnecessary because it was a lot of money. And just because I have a different sort of opinion does not mean that either one of them is right or wrong. It's a discussion. So when we go to the grocery store, I discuss those things with my son. My boys constantly want new things. They want new toys. They want this program. They want to get on this ride. They, want to go to the movies. And for whatever reason, some parents want to say no because they want to be strict about teaching them a lesson. But also some parents find it really hard to say no, because you want to give your children everything and you love them. And sometimes you just want them to stop yelling at you.
Yeah. Literally just
please
I
stop.
I this morning even, my daughter's having a tantrum going to school, which she doesn't often have, and I think we're entering the terrible twos, and, I was like, "I just really need to, like, bribe her with food right now." It was just like, I gave in, I just had to do it because I had to get her to school, she wouldn't leave the house, so you do sometimes feel like you're in survival mode with that, and it kind of translates the same into money and buying them things, you know?
Absolutely. This is a journey. You are free to make mistakes. One thing does not make you a terrible parent. You can repair and say, sorry, I made the wrong choice there to your child and take responsibility. And so, yes, I absolutely, please come into the store with me. I have to get this tool from Home Depot and I will buy you a chocolate bar. just for the love of God, please. I have absolutely used money that way. But then I also talk about that. I say, ooh, we just spent that money on this. And my son has had really interesting reflections when we talk about it. He said,
Remind me how old the son is that you're talking to.
Jed is 8. And when he was even younger, when he was 6, he said to me once, Mommy, when I buy a toy, I really want it and I'm really excited. But then after I play with it, I don't really want it anymore.
Oh, that is so that's sometimes things that I say to myself as a 32-year-old woman. It's like, oh my God.
Agreed. I was like, you see me. This is a mirror for humanity. It's how novelty works. You buy something, you get that dopamine rush. The love and sex part of your brain lights up because you have something new, but that feeling dissipates. And then you want to chase that feeling again. And the only way to do that is to have new. So we talk about hiding some of our toys, recycling them. So bringing them out again after a period of absence where they seem new to you. We talk about getting new toys, quote unquote, new toys. I'm doing air quotes for anyone listening, from our friends. So we'll do trades. Let's trade books this week. Let's go to the library and borrow some new things. I go to the library once a week. So they get quote unquote new books to read,
Brilliant.
New activities because you can borrow toys and puzzles from the library as well. And so there are many ways to get that feeling without necessarily buying. I have made my son, he really wanted this stuffed animal to add to his collection of 4,000 stuffed animals. And I have made him collect all of his toys that he was ready to give away, physically drove him to a consignment shop and said, if you want to buy that new toy, you have to make the money back by selling your things. And that was exciting for him because he, when he got the slip back that said, you're going to get $15, he was so excited. He said, my Beanie Baby is 17. I'm $2 away. How do we get that $2? It was a great exercise. And he was young. He was probably 5 or 6 when we did that. And so we keep doing that. There are many ways to teach your children about money based on what you value. And so one of the things currently that we always teach our children about charity, it's really important. We put the money in their hands to be able to give to people on the street.
But I love that you're making money fun for them. I think it's so important to not just be like, well, this is the math and this is what we spent on, but it's also making it fun for them. Like when he said, oh, I'm $2 away. It's making it it's almost like gamifying money in a way, in a fun way.
There are different programs out there that do gamify money, and they learn about it in their own ways in many facets. You need to make those lessons very tangible for them. You need to give them piggy banks. You need to, if there's a goal that you guys are saving for, you'd all have a jar in the kitchen somewhere visible. Or if there's a debt you're trying to get rid of, you might have I've heard of somebody creating a debt snake out of paper. And every single time they paid off their debt, somebody could cut the end of the tail off a little bit closer till they got to the head. So ways to make it a little bit more real for your children, because in their lives, they're just going to, they're probably going to tap some chip in their arm. It's going to be very immaterial.
Yeah. I want to talk about talking about finances with your partner, because I feel like partner communication is so important. And me and my husband talk about money a lot. We definitely have different views on money. We were raised differently, and but we do talk about it, which I think is important. There's still roadblocks and, disagreements about how to spend our money. But, what are some things that we can do as really busy working moms to talk to our partners about money in clear, concise ways? And also, like, just because we're so busy, like doing it fast.
So you said the word fast, which is what is tripping me up a little bit because we, as busy moms, we will spend so much time mapping out our napping schedule and when the baby feeds, and we'll know so much about our children's school lives, take part in parent teacher, in parent groups. We will know the ins and outs of our business and our marketing strategy. But when we have to deal with money, which basically builds your life, you are working so hard at your business in order to make money. I hope we spend the time that that it requires to make sure that we are strategizing when it comes to how we want to build our lives with the money that we have. And so that does require some conversations with your partner. I don't suggest that you have them when they come in through the door after a long day of work. So my first suggestion is to talk about money after you've connected. So on a walk or after you've had dinner. It's a fun thing. It's a great thing. If it's a hard thing to talk about, then talk about it in terms of goals. So that's my second. Create what I call a dream sandwich, because really money is about achieving something, trying to get something that you want. And so you might have a complaint about what something that your spouse or your partner is doing, but then sandwich it with your goals. So you're going to talk about something great. I'd love for us to save more money so that we can put into our kids' RESP to maximize that government grant. Talk about the hard part in the middle, which is the two of us are really just randomly spending on our credit cards, separate credit cards. We don't know what each other is doing. We probably should, either consolidate or set an amount that each of us can spend every week or biweekly or every month, so that we know that each of us can be free with that, with our choices, and not have to check in with each other. Or maybe we should check in with each other over a purchase of, say, I don't know, $500. Let's check in with each other to talk about that. And then end the sandwich with, again, something great. Oh, it's going to be great once we figure that stuff out. We'll have, this amount of more money to spend on this, and this, like having a vacation fund as well.
I love the reminder also about timing on when to talk about things, because we just had a huge argument right before we went to bed. And then we said, this is the wrong time to be talking about our upcoming vacation. Like, it was so clear after an hour and a half of lying in bed and talking. We're like, why are we doing this right before we go to bed? So I love the reminder after connecting with your partner. I love that so much. It's so important to find the right time to talk about money, because it's not always rainbows and butterflies. You have to talk about the hard shit. So I love that reminder.
You might also need a referee. That is okay to admit as well. So my husband and I, because we have such very different upbringings, he's from a family of entrepreneurs. They believe that they can make it. So I'll make the money. I'll just spend the money because I want it. I'll make it. And also his father, my husband's father, showed him that, one day you're going to live in that big mansion, and one day you're going to drive this fancy car. And when his father got money, he would buy my husband something fabulous, like a bike. And it was, my husband loves stuff. It's just the complete opposite. Every single time he tells me how much he spent on something, a small part inside of me dies. It just oh, you just stabbed me in the gut when you just told me you spent $1,000 on some random adult toy. Not not a sex toy, like a big man toy, some sort of video game gadget or whatever it is, the latest tech. But I don't have those values, so I have to appreciate that we're in different places and that we have completely different upbringings and that we have to talk about it. I have to make concessions, and so we actually used to have a lot of arguments about investing, because we have very different investing styles. I am risk averse and he is what's that? And the what? And the Bitcoin and the GameStop? Let's go, to the moon. We're all going. And we, years ago, we enlisted the help of a financial advisor, an investment advisor who would um, just be an ear in between us. And that was really helpful. And we have improved our conversations over the years to the point where we are currently in talks to let go of the advisor because we think that we can have these conversations ourselves. Um, I'm nervous about it, to be honest,
I
but
think it's great.
it was a crutch. It was a crutch to get us to a new place.
Yes.
And I think it did.
Well, I think it's also, and I'm sure you've obviously heard this, but it is kind of great that you have different mentalities on money, because I'm sure you have your struggles, but it's also like you probably bring him a bit back down to earth, and he probably also lets you kind of be a little bit more, more risky with your money. So I'm the same with my husband. He's kind of you, and I'm more like your husband. I don't think I'm like as excited to like spend. I do love saving too. I'm like you talk about two personalities in your book. I'm like the spender and the saver. I don't know how it works that I'm like that, but
You can have multiple personalities. You can have, and they're not really just personalities, just things that you identify with, the things in your personality that that really resonate with you. And my husband is great in the sense that his parents taught him, he inherited a fear of debt from his family because they were self-employed. So if you're behind, then you just don't have you don't have the money. So don't borrow it, because then you still don't have it. So because he's learned to be self-sufficient, it's this confidence that he has in taking the risk. The idea that, well, if I lose the money, I'll make it again. And there are studies that show that spenders marry savers. The saver thinks the spender is exciting, and the spender is really thinks that the saver is admirable in terms of their discipline. But further studies show that the conflicts that spenders and savers have after they get together are more indicative of fights and separation. So it attracts, but once you try to fit the pieces together, it's not going to be easy. So those conversations, those honest talks about money become so important, especially when you have a child, especially when you have children, because then the two of you are downloading very different messages onto your kids. Like my son is seeing my husband go, that's broken. Let's go get a new one. And I'm thinking, no, you don't get a new one because you broke it. You didn't take care of the one that you have. Let's go watch this video of all of the trash mountains in New Delhi so that you understand why we can't just throw stuff out and why we can't just buy tons of new clothes because fast fashion is killing us. So
it's true.
My values are very different. And so it's great that my son gets the two, but I'm not trying to make my husband look bad. I'm just trying to explain to him, this is what I believe, and this is why, and this is what daddy believes, and this is why. You're going to have to one day make your own decisions.
Yeah. Do you have to get on the same page as your partner, though, in front of your kids? Because now your kid is seeing two different representations of how money is, to be used and spent. So is it not confusing? Is it better if you kind of approach it in a same way, so you kind of come as a united front to your kids? What works best?
I think as a parent, it's easier if the two of you are on the same page. Mm-hmm. If you've discussed it and you're going to present a united front, it's always easier, right? But it's not reality. So if that is not your situation in your household, you just don't agree with what your partner believes, then I wouldn't pretend. I wouldn't stuff your own feelings and your own thoughts down just to defer to somebody else because you think that was possibly better, because the world doesn't work that way. That's not, and they're going to see it leak out the edges. You're going to say one thing, but you're going to behave in another way. So an alternate approach to that would be to not denigrate your partner. You're not ever trying to make your partner look bad. That's not the point of the partnership. The point of the partnership is to emphasize differences. And you're trying to work those differences out. That's basically life. There's going to be things that you want in life, you want to buy. You're not going to be able to get them. And it's going to feel shitty. But this is how we have to sit with that feeling and talk about it.
I have goosebumps. I feel like the theme is just talk more about money. Like I said at the beginning, talk more about money. Okay, so
well, there's structural things. If you want to talk about those things, absolutely we can as well.
So I want to talk about investing a little bit because, I grew up too where, my dad is a successful entrepreneur and he, made his way on his own, came to this country with not a lot and worked his way up in the corporate world and then became an entrepreneur in his 50s. And it was very admirable. He's one of my biggest mentors. But he did a lot of investing for us on behalf of us and didn't really talk to us about the things that he was doing, at least as a kid. I learned a lot more from him when I was in my 20s, but I almost feel like that's so late. So let's talk a little bit about investing now as a high performing working mom, and how we can make our money work for us now, because it's something that we can improve upon even if we have a little bit more knowledge about investing.
There are so many tools now that make investing a little bit more, that it's going to give you all these really great benefits, but it will involve less involvement. It involves less involvement. There is a way to be more passive, but active in the stock market. That sounds weird, but let me explain. So I think in the past we've thought, and my husband likes to think of investing this way. You read about a hot stock tip. You think, Brex, yes, that sounds like a great company. I'm going to put a whole bunch of money there and just, put all your eggs in one basket and hope that it goes to the moon, as they say. But because of technology, there are ways to you've heard of robo-advisors, you've heard of apps now where you can invest your money in a basket, say an index fund. They call it index investing, where you're investing in, say, a basket of stocks and bonds, a mixture of it, that mimic a specific stock market index. And you're trying to put money in regularly. So rather than worry about picking stocks and selling stocks and wondering what to do, and Apple's going up, it's going down, what should I do? You are just basically going to take advantage of the power of something called dollar cost averaging. You're just going to put money in regularly, once a month, every single time. Sometimes the market's going to go up, sometimes it's going to go down, but you are going to concentrate on time in the market versus trying to time the market. It's an opposite strategy of, say, what my husband is doing, but it's the strategy that a lot of research shows has been very effective for anyone who is working on some long-term goals. Long-term goals like perhaps your child's education, if saving for them is important to you in terms of their post-secondary education. Things like retirement. You don't want your children to look after you, so you have to look after yourself above all else. That is a must. Yes, you're going to get a government pension, but it's not nearly enough when it comes to funding the type of retirement you need. And as an entrepreneur, you don't have this magical, pension plan that's coming from an employer. You're the employer. So you do have to look after yourself. And so money that you stock away needs to be put in things that will appreciate over time, like the stock market, like real estate, like potentially some of it also in other businesses. There are many ways to invest in a way that will increase your wealth, but you have to do it. You can't have your money sitting in some sort of savings account and hoping that it's going to be great. You have to do it.
Yeah, it's not doing anything. It's just sitting there. And I think people are like, I have this whole savings account, but it's just not working for you. You might as well put a small amount towards something like what you're talking about, right?
You should have a savings account. Everybody needs a savings account for I have a million savings accounts, Daddy. But they are earmarked for things. So I have a savings account that is specifically for emergencies. It covers, for us, we're entrepreneurs, it covers eh, um, maybe 6 months to a year of living expenses. It's a lot of amount of money just sitting there for us. But because it's just for my circumstances, we are both self-employed, my husband and I. My husband has had health issues in the past with his mental health, which means for periods of time he may not work. That's a big deal as well for us. So we need to be prepared for that. We also might need that money for treatment. So our family, we have calculated how much money we would need to be comfortable to be able to take care of the things that are important to us. Surviving for us looks very different from, say, another family. So we need to have the money to be able to make sure that we can float through that storm. And then I have other money for things like my sister's getting married in July. This is a planned savings fund because there's the shower, there's the bachelorette, I had to buy my dress, I'm doing my hair and makeup, blah, blah, blah. So there are things that you are going to plan for, like a vacation fund. You're saving to that too. So you can have many, many pots, but anything that's for 5 years, 10 years out should probably be, not probably, should be invested. You can't have money sitting in a savings account. Even a high interest savings account is not going to beat inflation right now, given how high inflation is these days. In which case, that money sitting in that account is actually losing value.
That's so fucked up.
No, it's great. It's wonderful. It's the idea that you could park money in a place, and if you just leave it, rebalance it every year, make sure that it's diversified in places. And remember that basket of funds can be diversified. You can buy a basket of funds that is diversified across markets, meaning that it is in different industries, meaning that it is in the US and Canada and international. Like there are ways to spread your money out so that the ups and the downs don't feel as painful, but also the knowledge that, you know what, I don't need it tomorrow. I'll need it 10 years from now. And historically, the stock market has gone up and down, but it's kind of like somebody going up the stairs with a yo-yo. It's going up and down, but it's still growing.
Mm-hmm. And another thing on that kind of topic, like we are constantly, trying to make more and more and more money, right? So that we can invest it and do all these things. But and I've heard this before, even before I read in your book, but you made it a lot more clear and just, it just made a lot more sense to me that at a certain point, when you're making a certain amount of money, I think it was like 95K USD, right? Like after that number, it didn't really mean you were more satisfied. Can you talk to me more about this? Because it kind of goes back to our original conversation about, that abundance mindset.
Lots of people have studied how much money you need to make optimally in terms of happiness. And obviously for every person, that number is going to be different. But so far, the research has said that number falls between, my brain is not working today. I need more sleep, which means I can't be co-sleeping with my kid right now.
Oh,
It's my kid in the middle of the night. Probably about 50 to 65K US per single family household pre-tax. That's the number when it comes to day-to-day happiness. How you feel right now, listening to us chat. Hopefully you feel great. And then the 95K that you mentioned was a more recent study that had to do with life satisfaction in terms of how satisfied with your life as a judgment as a whole. However, yes, there are some studies that suggest that once you make above those thresholds, because you're not covering your survival needs anymore, you're sleeping indoors, you have food to eat, you actually experience a decrease in happiness. And people think, what? Wait a minute. I make more money and then I am less happy. No way. But a lot of that actually makes sense. The more money you make, often the more hours you are putting in. So the less time you are spending to do the things that you love, to do the things that you need, like getting outdoors, experiencing nature, making connections with actual human beings, not through Zoom necessarily, in a meeting. So there are more pressures on you. You're probably more stressed. And then the more money you have, the more you compete with the Joneses who are in your category. And there's lots of studies that show that the more materialistic people are, the less likely they are to enjoy the little things in life.
I remember
which
reading that too. Yeah.
really feeds you as a person. And so, yes, this is why you can chase the rainbow, the end of the rainbow for that pot of gold. But please, like, it's hard to wrap your head around the idea that once you get to that pot of gold, you're going to think, yeah, I need more gold. But we're hardwired to believe that because that pot of gold starts to look a lot less shiny. You just get used to it. And because we're adaptive, it's an amazing human quality. We have hedonic adaptation, is that we get used to stuff. You even get used to pain. And so you're going to get used to that new lifestyle. So sometimes I remind people before you get that big raise, before you get that next contract, make a promise to yourself that you're just going to put that money automatically into savings, so that you don't actually move your benchmark up to spend it, because you're just going to spend it and you're not even going to notice.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to say something annoying, but I feel
I'm
like
sure it's not annoying.
I feel like so many other women will resonate with this though, but that's really hard to hear because what I'm doing in my business, as many other women are trying to make it uber successful. And you do have to like get it to a certain place financially if you want to have an exit or sell your business or whatever. So, I feel like that's such a hard thing to hear because, you know, it's like you have to get to that place as a business owner, or you think you have to get to that place, but really from a personal standpoint, that money won't actually make you and your overall life goals and, vision for your life happier. So it's just it's so counter and it's so different than what we're supposed to be or what we feel we're supposed to be doing. Does that make sense? I just had a little bit of a ramble, but I think you get
No,
it.
it does make sense. But I also think that's how I think it's a certain kind of perspective shift as well, because you're not building your business just to make money. You're building your business because it gives you a sense of purpose. It gives you fulfillment. You are helping the world. You're contributing with your talents. There are many reasons why you build that business. Money becomes this benchmark often for how well you do, but it doesn't have to be. It's not the only benchmark for how successful your business becomes. I think putting a money figure on, I need to build it to be this amount of money so that I could sell it, so that it's sustainable, so blank, 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 I need to grow it, is a wonderful goal. And you can have that goal. It's a beautiful goal. The only reason why we're talking about, well, no matter how much money you make, you may not be happier. That's just one facet of this very multifaceted diamond that you are creating, that is your life, right? You are realizing that, yes, part of life is having wonderful things to work towards. And that wonderful thing might be building this empire. And one of the wonderful things that this empire will afford is the money to do more good. And I know what that good is because I've thought about it. I'm not on this I'm not on this hamster wheel, just randomly chasing something. I know what I'm building. And that's not to say that when I get there, I'll stop. It's to say that that money that I'm building it for, it is going to go to meaningful things. That's the only reason to ask that question, or the only reason to think about, will I get that pot of gold and be more happy or unhappy? That's not the point. The point is to constantly make sure that you know with yourself that you are asking yourself, am I doing it for the reasons that I believe are right?
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Am I spending it on things that I believe are valuable? If you are spending your money on things that you believe are valuable, then no one can tell you otherwise. My husband will buy his racing machine that I'm literally staring at in front of me, that I think, are you going to build this thing? This is so expensive. It's ridiculous. It's my footrest. But he loves it. And he has talked about this racing simulator with his best friend who actually recently passed away. And it means something great to him. It means that his connection with his friend, this legacy that he's going to continue. Who am I to say that this is not valuable? Don't let anybody tell you that what you're building or what you're buying is not valuable, because you know. But that's because you've thought about it. That's because you've questioned it. That's because you've said to yourself, oh, I'm not really buying this because it is artificially inflating my ego, or I'm buying this because I genuinely value it, and I put aside the money in my spending account, which automatically comes out of my bank account every 2 weeks to buy whatever I want.
Yeah, it's just that thoughtful spending. And I love that reminder. Like, I really needed that reminder to be just that little bit more thoughtful when I'm doing my online shopping, right? And not just justifying it because I feel like it's like something I need or want.
To
It's
be
like,
honest, Danny, it's really hard. It's really hard to be constantly thoughtful about money, especially when you're sleep deprived. You're so busy. And sometimes you do need a little bit of retail therapy because the kid has been screaming for an hour about the banana be breaking. It's not a full banana anymore. And so I get that. So what I was talking about in terms of the structure of your money is if you can automate your goals, determine what your goals are, midterm, short-term, long-term goals, and then automate your money for that. That this means that you've already created a budget. You've already looked at, I know the B word, it's scary, but it's not, especially when you are, it gives you tremendous clarity. If you just look at how much money is coming in and how much money is going out, and it's hard when you're an entrepreneur because you don't always know. But if you look back over, say, 6 months to a year, or you look back this time last year, kind of gives you a rough idea, rough numbers to work with. Um, Once you have that, if you are meeting your goals, if you have surplus. If you are lucky enough to have surplus, then you have to decide, okay, this is going to this goal, this is going to this goal, this is going to this goal. And guess what? The rest, just spend it. Spend it on whatever the F you want.
I love that.
Then you don't have to worry in that moment. You're like, stop crying about banana. I'm just going to insta buy this for myself. Go ahead. Do it. Go ahead. You have already taken care of your priorities.
Okay, you heard it here from Melissa. She just told you to go out and spend it, but based on all those conditions, obviously. Obviously. I love that, though. It's such a good reminder. And it really does, again, come back to your whole concept of like making money fun and, not worrying about it as much. So I love that. And I feel like so many people are like going to be thinking, thank you for that reminder. I really needed to hear that. So, oh my God, so many truth bombs in this episode. Like, this is so good. I love this. And I hope everyone can just like go and either talk about money with their friends or their partners and their children and take all of this knowledge and use it, because it's so amazing. Thank you. I want to do a quick rapid fire with you, if that's okay.
Please. I'm ready.
I also could have like 16 more episodes with you I have about like, no joke, 17 more questions here that I wanted to ask you, but I feel like that's a good place to just say, cool, that was a lot. Because that was a lot. It was good. Okay, let's do some rapid fire. So in 3 words, describe yourself pre-kids. And in 3 words, describe yourself post-kids.
I think in the state of mind, it really depends on what state of mind you're in. I mean, there's this default answer that a lot of moms are going to be self-deprecating. They're going to say, 3 words after, tired.
Yeah, tired is definitely in there. Tired and broke is like given, but
then maybe we were tired and broke before. Maybe I was tired and broke before too, but it's just tired and broke, but just had more time. Maybe, I don't know. Hang on a second.
Yeah, could withstand a hangover better. Yeah.
Okay, 3 words that would describe me before I had kids. I would say that I was hardworking, probably to a fault, extremely ambitious, and really adventurous. The first 2 probably are just tied to me trying to make sense of who I was and who I wanted to be. But then after I had kids, I feel that journey of trying to find myself is just, I got off that road and I'm on a completely different road. And now I'm on the right road. And so I feel wiser. I feel more purposeful. I feel more compassionate towards others and myself in a way that I've never been in my life because I was too busy working.
It's true. Kids really do make you more like empathetic and compassionate. I totally resonate with that. What's the most rewarding part for you for being a working mom?
Because I'm self-employed, I set my hours. and I set my boundaries, and I have been able to prioritize my family over and over and over again. And that has given me, I'm not saying it's right for everybody else, but it has given me so much. Um, it's given me a reason to love myself, to say that I think you're doing the right thing because I think you are finally doing something that is in line with what you want. And that feels really good. I mean, I had a big job come up and I never would have done this, but I turned it down because I did not want to travel on Halloween. And Halloween is a big deal for my kids. We get all dressed up, we do the family costumes, and I get 12 Halloweens with my kids. And there is no amount of money. Well, everyone has a price, but there is you'd have to go really crazy high to get me to miss one of 12.
Yeah. That is so incredible. And I think a lot of people can resonate with the learning how to say no more, just the trade-offs, right?
It was so hard to do, though. I was tortured by it. I mean, it was an incredible opportunity that I think would open so many great doors, but I couldn't do it.
I get it. And that's hard. Yeah. That shit's hard. It's hard to kind of sit with that too. What advice would you give to women who are considering starting a family while pursuing a demanding career?
I think society told us that we could have it all, but I think it's untrue and I think it's unfair. I think you can have it all, but not all at the same time. We have seasons. There are going to be times where you're going to feel pushed and pulled in every direction, and you're going to have to make choices. One day will be for this, and another day will be for that, and that's okay. You don't have to do everything all at once. I'm not trying to be negative, but the system currently is not supportive of working moms as much as it needs to be. There are so many things that need to happen in society for us to really embrace that balance. But right now, the balance is hard. And so I would say that it will be hard, and that is okay. You don't have to be perfect at everything. You try your best. And some days it feels like a slog, and some days it feels like you're winning. And you'll figure it out.
You can have it all, just not all at once. Boom.
I don't know. Okay. What do you think about that, Danny? Like, do you?
Oh, I completely agree. I do think you can, and I think it's just a reframe. Like, you can have it all. But yes, it's not going to be at the same time. It resonates with me a lot because I have those days too, where some days you feel like you're trenching through the mud and you're in the dirt and you're just so low. And some days you feel like a rock star. So I completely agree with that. And I think it's a really good reminder because we are told we can have it all. Ladies, you can do it all. You can be a mom and you can have a sexy job and do all the things. But it's just it's bullshit. And I think that it's a great reminder to have that reframe that you can have it. And over the course of your lifetime, you'll have it, but maybe not all at once. So
I don't know a single mom. I don't have a single friend who is a parent who has their shit together. Like they just, in this presentation, I would use a slide where I'm on the social and I look fabulous because I've had professional makeup done. I have a stylist and my wardrobe is immaculate. But literally 3 hours before that, I was in sick kids emergency with my barfing child. And you're just, how am I supposed to go on live television when I've been awake all night with my kid? And, it's just, you don't always see the full picture. You see this curated vision of someone on Instagram, and it's not reality. It's just, it doesn't serve you. We all need to have more grace for ourselves.
Yeah, show ourselves a little more kindness. It's a great reminder. My last question because it's just
I'm sorry,
really,
this isn't rapid fire. We're
this
getting into
is
like
so, you know what? It's so different for every guest. Some people are quick and I love this. It's like a full other conversation just about motherhood and, working, and I love it. So the tangents are my favorite. This is great. This is fucking great. So keeping in line with the title of my podcast, Just One More Hour, because we all need just one more hour. What would you do with one more hour if it were given to you today?
well, I'm going to go upstairs right now and try to ask for consent for snuggling with the 4-year-old. He is going to give me a hard no, and I will feel sad. But if I had another more hour, um, I would spend that time just going for a walk with my kids. I often play that game. It's the time traveler game, where you pretend that you are a time traveler from 20 years from now, and you get to transport back into your body for just 5 minutes of today. And what would you do in this 5 minutes? What would you take in? What would you absorb? What would you say? And it's just a lot of appreciating that even in the hard times in motherhood, in fatherhood, in parenthood, um, one day you're going to think, oh, those were the days. I look at my older family members in the quiet of their beautiful, immaculate, clean homes. And I think I'm going to be there one day. And this chaos and this mess and this mayhem and noise, where my husband and I look at each other and we kind of jokingly say, we need to go on a cocaine bender or a heroin bender right now. Like, we just need to just get out of here and be drunk or something, because this is just ridiculous in the house. Like, it's crazy. Um, but this chaos, these are the good days. These are the good old days that people will say.
That's so funny you say that, because every time my husband and I have a really cute, adorable moment with our daughter. Like, we went for a walk and she goes, Mommy's hand, Daddy's hand. She wants to hold both of our hands. And I just melt. And we look at each other and we go, these are the good old days. And it's
Yeah.
just those moments that you just need to come back into your body and think of. I love that. It's so true. Well, I hope
Yes,
you
I
give.
don't even remember. I don't remember the last time I held my oldest's hands. He doesn't like it anymore, and that's something that struck me. Someone said, I think I read somewhere that you don't remember the last time that you held them. When was the last time that you picked your kid up and held them? And I don't remember the last time I held Jet. At some point, he became too heavy. I carried Bo, who's 4, to the bathroom in the middle of the night last night, and I was like, "Oh, I'm carrying you still." This one day you're gonna look back and be like, "Whoa, those days of hustle and running, and it was all madness, but it was all wonderful."
It's wonderful. I hope you take that walk with Jet and Bo. I hope this is your friendly reminder to just go do it. Find the hour and go do it. And thank you for spending the hour with me. This was amazing. I feel like I want to extract pretty much every piece of this episode because it was so good. Sometimes you're like, oh, this one section was really good. Every moment of this was amazing. And I'm so grateful to you. I know your time is so valuable, and we both wore green. I actually didn't even think about wearing green, by the way. And I just did because I guess mentally I was
Money,
talking about money. Yeah. But really, thank you so much for your time. You're an exceptionally incredible woman, and I'm so grateful to know you. And thank you for sharing with all of us.
Likewise.
Thank you so much, Melissa.
Thanks, Danny.
Love today's episode? Subscribe and share with another amazing woman, and follow me at the Double Shift Podcast for more. Do you know someone that would be an incredible guest? Head to DannyKagan.com. Have a beautiful rest of your day.